So I was without a car for a little while. Like I said, single person working part-time, or not part-time, minimum wage job. Not a whole lot of options, right? So I found a car for $300. Okay. Let me back up a bit. I lived in Walkerton. I worked in Hanover. I worked at Walmart, which is the far end of Hanover. And now I'm stuck without a way to work. When I moved into I don't remember. I think when I moved to Chesley, when I got my apartment in Chesley, I know I still had my bike when I was in Cargill, because I remember Joe borrowed it to ride into town. So I had it then. I think when I moved into my apartment in Chesley, I got rid of my bike. I didn't figure it. I don't know why. I figured I didn't need it or something. I don't know. But I gave it to my friend at work. Same one that had the digital camera. And I sold it to him or gave it to him. I don't remember. But either way, I didn't have my bike anymore. So I couldn't afford to take a taxi into work every day, there and back. Because that'd be like $20 each trip. That's insane. So $40 a day, I'll be able to afford to live like that. So, so my friend sold the bike to somebody else that was working at Walmart. He was an unloader. He sold it to him. And I got talking to him. I said, would it be possible to buy it back from you? And he gave it to me. He said, no, I don't ride it anymore anyways. I'll just give it to you. So I got my bike back and started biking in. And at that particular time, this was in the springtime at this point, I found a car. I paid $300 for it. It was a weird car. It was a Toyota Corolla, a wagon or hatchback, whatever you want to call it. But the windshield came up and the roof was, it looked like it had a forehead. I'll have to show you a picture. I can't really, it looked like it had a forehead. It was a weird car. But it was all-wheel drive, 5-speed all-wheel drive. It was fun in the wintertime, I'll tell you that. But it was an interesting car. I paid $300 for it. And I had to replace the windshield because it was cracked really bad. So it cost me another $300 for the windshield. And then I had other things I had to do. I had to fix holes in the body. Body was rotted pretty good on it. I had to fix the hole. So all this has taken time. And I can only do so much out of each paycheck. So time was going by. And biking into work. And that year, we were getting tornado watches and tornado warnings pretty much every friggin' day. It was insane. I remember one day I was riding home and I could see the storm coming and I was trying to get home. I was riding as fast as I could. And when I pulled in, we had a really long driveway. The house was up on the hill. We got this big hill that comes out of Walkerton. Right at the top of the hill, that's where our driveway entrance is. So you enter there, and then you follow along the top of the highway, and then turns to where the house is. So I'm already seeing lightning. I'm already hearing thunder. I'm out in the open, trying to get home. Turned into our driveway. I started riding alongside this open field, and I'm looking over at my trailer, and I see lightning between me and the trailer. Oop. Hope that didn't make it cause a problem there. So, you know, that lightning was in the field beside me. That freaked me out. But I made it. No issues. That was too much. I said, okay, I gotta do what I need to do to get this car going. So finally did. Once I got this car on the road, all the storm warnings stopped. That was crazy. Side by side again. So, I drove that car for a while, and it didn't last very long at all. So the next winter came along, and everything was going wrong with this car. Everything. It's just one thing after another. It ran perfectly. It never had an issue with driving it. The issue I had was the horn quit working, parking brake quit working, seized up or something. I'm not sure what it was. And the body was rotting again. It was falling apart. It was horrible. It was crazy. And I went down to visit my parents at Christmas. I'm driving down the highway, and all of a sudden I hear this thump noise, and all of a sudden the back end of the car bounced up in the air. Like, what the heck? I don't remember seeing anything on the road. I look in the mirror, and it looks like a log, like firewood, bouncing down the road. And I think, what the heck? I don't remember seeing that. So I got in. I think I got in Kitchener. I think was my next stop, and I pulled into Tim Hortons. I get out, and see if I got any damage, and my whole rocker panel was gone. So that's what it was. Well, the ice building up on the rocker panel as I'm driving down the highway, and it just got to be too much for it, and it just let go, and I ran over, with the back wheel. So that was part of my car I ran over. That did. Wow. So I was like, okay, I need to do something. That was just too much. So at that point, I kind of knew it was time for a new car again. I didn't want to be in the situation where, this car's gonna break in half when I'm driving down the road or something, and then I'm without a car again. I didn't want to be without a car. So I decided it was time to start looking. And I had a credit card for a little while, so I was starting to build up my credit. I didn't think my credit was all that great anyways, but I went to Leslie Motors in Walkerton, and their slogan in all their commercials is, "We have your car." So I went in there, and I walked up to the desk, and a guy says to me, he says, "May I help you?" I says, "Yeah, apparently you have my car." Everybody kind of looks over at me. He looks at me, he says, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, according to your commercial, you have my car." Everybody kind of laughs, and everyone that looked at me just kind of goes back to what they were doing. So he asked what I was looking for. I says, "Well, I can't afford a lot, but, what do you have for used vehicles?" So my price range, I looked at a few things. He showed me a minivan, not interested. Showed me something else, and then he showed me this car. I don't remember what year it was now. I'm thinking I don't remember. But it wasn't all that old. It's only a few years old. It was Illumina. It was a nice looking car, but I really didn't like the color. It was kind of a golden sand color. I didn't really like it. But I sat inside it, and I'll tell you, it was like sitting in the cockpit of an airplane. It was so comfortable. Had a lot of instruments. Everything was like right there. It had this nice armrest. You open up the armrest and there's a cup holder that folds out and everything's sitting coffee right there. And it had a really nice radio in it. I don't remember everything, but it was so comfortable. And he gave me the keys so I could take it for a test drive. And as soon as I pulled out onto the road, I said, "Yeah, this is my car." It was a dream to drive. It was so amazing. I've never drove a car anything like that. Like I say, it was so comfortable. And I put the gas pedal down, and it had so much power. It blew my mind. So I drove down the highway a bit. There's no point in driving too far because I already knew I wanted it. So I came back and backed into the parking spot. I opened the door, leaned out, looked underneath it, and there was no rust whatsoever underneath it. I was like, wow. So $2,000 certified, which means when I buy it, I can drive it right away. I don't have to do anything to it. I don't have to wait for parts, right? So, okay, I want this car. Can I finance it? That's the next question. So he goes in, asks me, gets my banking information, and he asks me different things. He asked me, what my credit card balance was, what my minimum payment was each month, and I says, I don't have a minimum payment, and he looked at me kind of weird. I says, I use the card, and then when I get paid, I pay it off. I says, I never have a running balance, right? Which is what I did back then. Because I didn't want to get into a situation where, my payments are going to be more than what I can afford, right? So, he says, okay, well, submit the information, and I'll give you a call. So, I don't remember if it was that day or the next day he said I was accepted. But problem is, the minimum amount that I could borrow was $4,000. I only needed $2,000, but he said that's the minimum $4,000. So I really was not expecting to be accepted, but I was. Like, oh my God, this car's mine. So something else that I hadn't thought of originally, because when I have insurance on my cars, I have the basics, so I can afford. When I had my Capri, when I first moved to Chesley, I had a Capri, Mercury Capri, that was actually technically my friend's car. It was in his name, but it had my license plates and my insurance, right? I was paying $41 a month for insurance, and I was with State Farm at that time, and they had a profit sharing thing. Is at the end of the year, you get a certain amount of money back as, part of their profit sharing, right? Well, 9/11 happened. That all changed. My insurance went up to $84 a month. And the profit sharing stopped. Had nothing to do with Canada. It was in a different country, right? But all the insurance companies decided, say, oh man, we need more money. So I wasn't impressed with that. $41 a month I could afford, no problem. Then it jumped up to 84, and it only went up after that, right? Crazy. So, problem I'm facing now is when you finance a car, there's a lien on that car, which means you don't fully own it, right? So in order to insure it, you have to have collision. So if it's your fault, you need to be able to pay that other owner, the balance of the car. So anytime I looked at it before, adding collision to your insurance premium doubles the cost, right? So I talked to my insurance agent, and I was like, oh, this is not good. This is the day I picked up the car, by the way. Because after I was accepted, like I said, it was sold certified. So they did one final inspection on it before they let it go, and it turned out they found a leaking oil seal, I think it was. And he says technically it's not part of a safety, but they're going to fix it anyways. Okay, no problem. And there was something else, a burned out light bulb or something that they fixed. So I went in the next day to pick up the car, and that's when I called my insurance agent, and that's when she told me I had to have collision on it. So she went through the numbers, and it only raised the price up like $10, $20 or something. So I was like, whew, sigh of relief. Thank goodness. So I was okay with that. And I drove off the lot a very, very happy person with a very nice car. And that turned out to be my favorite car. Of all the cars I've ever owned, that was my favorite. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I can certainly understand why they were used as police cars, because they're fast. They handle beautifully. Just a comfortable car to drive. Yeah, I went down to visit my parents one time, and I was coming back, and there was a farm tractor driving down the highway and a whole bunch of vehicles behind it, and waiting in line, everybody one at a time passing. He wasn't going slow, but he wasn't doing highway speed. So, okay, came my turn. There's nothing coming. I pulled out. Just as I pulled out, a school bus comes over the hill the other direction. So I put it to the floor. I was probably doing 60 kilometers per hour at that time. It went right down to first gear. The tires spun. It just threw me back on my seat. It scared the crap out of me. But that just impressed me. And as soon as it went into second gear, it just took off. I was impressed. That car was absolutely amazing. It was 3.1 liter. I think there's nothing special about it. It was a 3.1 liter. Big. It was nice. But I was happy. I was very happy. I had a nice car. And when I was down visiting my parents, I was visiting my friend, and he wanted to take it for a drive. So I let him drive, and he was impressed. He says even if you paid twice as much for this car, I'd still be impressed. It was that nice. I couldn't believe it was only $2,000. It was very nice. So time went on, and I got, like I say, my minimum I could borrow was $4,000. Car was only $2,000, so I had $2,000 to play with. Well, a little bit less because I had to pay for licensing and stuff like that. So I decided this would be a good time to get a new camera. Oh, a lot of noisy traffic today. That seems to be common when I'm sitting here trying to make a video. If I just pull in here and take a break, it's usually pretty quiet. Yeah, the odd vehicle that goes by, but when I'm making a video, all the noisy ones go by. Probably because I'm sitting here for a longer period of time, I don't know. But anyways, I decided I wanted a new camera. So that's when I bought my first Fuji FinePix, or FinePix as I used to call it, S5100. Nice. It looked like an SLR, but it wasn't. It was a bridge camera. A bridge camera is in between point and shoot and an SLR. It's basically a point and shoot with SLR features. It looks like an SLR. They call them bridge cameras because it kind of bridges the gap in between the two. Oh, it was nice. It was a very, very nice camera. And I don't remember the megapixel on it, megapixel count, but it did video. It did video with audio. And my friend, she said to me that she was looking at, getting a digital camera, and she offered to buy my old one, my Concorde. So I sold it to her. I don't remember how much, not much. So kind of got a little bit of my money back from it. And I was using this Fuji. The only thing I didn't like about it is it took AA batteries. It took 4 AA batteries, and it ate through them pretty quickly. Did not like that, but, you know, so be it, right? Beautiful camera. Heavy, very heavy camera. And it had digital zoom, had this long lens that would come out, and it was actually pretty good. And my Panasonic that I just introduced, the zoom was kind of set up the same way. It's got the optical zoom, and then once it reaches its limit of the optical zoom, it turns into digital zoom, takes over from there. It was kind of the same thing, but it was, I think, 480p was maximum on it, so it wasn't it wasn't HD at all, but even still, it was pretty good. But when you get into digital zoom, right, with the at 480p, you know, the quality's gonna go away really quickly, which it did. But it was nice. It took amazing pictures. I loved it. I don't remember what I paid for it. It was under $1,000, but it was up there. It was really close to 1,000. It was in the between 8 and 900, I think. And it was nice, but it had the powered zoom, which I do not like. And the worst thing about that camera is once you start recording, if you're recording video, once you start recording video, you can't zoom in and out anymore, and the autofocus is locked. It won't change. So I was getting video of her little puppy dogs, and the dog started coming towards me, and it went out of focus because, you know, I can't do anything about it, right? That's the one thing I did not like about that camera. But I started getting some really, really nice pictures with it. Now, just before that, my friend at work that had the little keychain digital camera, him and his wife and 2 kids were heading to the park, and he invited me along. So I had my Concorde still at that time, and invited me to take pictures with them. And I got a bunch of pictures of the boys, and I discovered that camera does not like action shots at all. It was horrible at action shot. The kids' heads were warped, and it was really horrible. The pictures themselves were good. It's just the action shots. It does not like to move when it's taking a picture. So that was kind of horrible. So with this new camera, he invited me over to his house. The kids were going swimming. They just got a brand new pool, and he was setting it up. Oh, sorry, I got an itch. Hang on a second. I'm not sure what kind of noise that's gonna make hitting the microphone like that, so I'll just I'll blot that out. So I started using this camera to take pictures of them, and I quickly discovered that camera won't work for that situation. I need to be able to change the zoom, you know, as the kids move around. So I immediately realized I needed a new camera.